I thought it was you, Lisa, and Alan.
Lisa's ex officio, she doesn't get them.
Yeah, she's
She's not on the committee this,
I don't think they've been here.
I thought it was Jeff, but I could be wrong there too.
I think it used to be Jeff, but I think it's,
Oh, they switched it
I
up?
think it's Dave, isn't it?
Chuck said he'd be happy to go
He
and send
almost
his replacement
smiled.
next time.
I'm gonna, they'll be right back. I'm gonna go look.
I don't have the,
You don't have a packet either?
no, I have the packet, I don't have the listing.
Here's the
Give me a
copy.
short meeting if I can. I'll figure out what I did.
Thank you, Daniel.
I'm gonna call the meeting, the Capital Improvement Committee to order. We do not have a quorum, so we'll dispense with approval of the minutes. Discussion, capital planning.
All right.
You want to do it, or you want me to go?
Go ahead, Mona.
I'll run. Last meeting we talked about using the scorecard, so you have a page in your packet, just to show you the results of what we did with the scorecard. Pardon my scribbles on the side, I wanted to point out a few items on there. So I think that the scorecard, for the most part, works very well. We have, all the departments are scoring based on health, safety, infrastructure, economic development, environmental protection, community development, facilities, operational effectiveness, and quality of life, and also double weights in anything that is contractual or weight sensitive. So what we do is we send out our items, everybody scores. I know we did have for Board of Ed that they were not scoring on some of our items, so the average included the average of those participating in the scoring to make sure it was a fair weighting. I was just pointing out, there's a little highlighting in yellow that for third one down, it says fiscal year 2027, although Board of Ed's got in there. Capital, to have the West Hill roof for 2027, we have presented it as 2026. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The little stars, the single ones along the right side, pointing out that although we do a scorecard, there are some items that still get listed as current funding, although they have not made it. So we said, for example, the Stevens doors and windows actually show up in 2030, although it did have a high score. As well as the next star, which is the Beach Road Culvert, shows as unfunded at this point and did get a high score.
And that funding just came through too in
Good.
the last couple of days, or each.
For the design, though.
Yeah, the design, isn't this the design? This is the design on this, so we can change that to reflect.
Good.
Yeah.
The double asterisk ones, again, pointing out just kind of the reality of using a scorecard system, that there are some that do show up in the 2026 CIP plan, but did not necessarily score highly. And again, I think that's driven more of the categories, if it's community development and environmental, but there are, for example, the Elmridge Pool still's coming out for some funding to be allocated. The infrastructure for the community farm, phase 2, is in the 2026. You can see that scored as a 15, not on a high score, but there's still money reserved. As well as the elevator upgrade, which is a facility and, yeah, yes.
That was slid over to 29.
Good, okay, so our scorecard worked. Good answer. I love when it worked. So, that's it for this item on capital planning, and then I'd like to jump to the next agenda item.
Are there any questions on?
So that $70,000 is appropriated to the capital budget is not for the elevator, that pushed it up to 29.
That will help us, yes. I'll tell the next story.
If there's no questions, we'll go on to the Board of Ed CIP.
I'm actually going to skip page 3. Am I gonna? Yeah. Right.
We can do it in a different order.
Okay.
Page 4 again?
Yes, 4, Roman 4. So, worked with the Board of Ed on this one. You guys talk about it a lot, but I'll just do a highlight of what the form is that we're looking at. We're good? So I have highlighted in yellow, talking with Ron and Chuck, although they haven't gone to their facilities meeting as of yet, but there's discussion that those items that were originally in the 26 year should get pushed outward. And then in that green highlighting being the West Hill roof, would be recommended from Board of Ed to go into the 26. So you see that's just kind of shifting some of those items. I wanted to point out the upper part of that form is I'm trying to show the revenue sources just to keep track of where we are for future funding. So for this particular year, 2025, funding is $600,000 was set aside for Board of Ed. We have non-recurring for $398, leaving the $998 available for this year. See that expended, and again, that's HVAC Stevens, that's a reserve. I think at this point you guys are not planning on spending that.
No, we are.
For this. Okay, good.
Yep, this summer.
That's actually a time where I say good. Good. So that amount would roll forward, so what I'm trying to show is just a progressive growth on there. Important pieces for the non-recurring, we went to finance and discussed the closing of the internal service fund. It'll go to council on the next agenda item for official voting. But obviously what that'll do is that'll go to non-recurring and help fund these projects. So if you see that 2026 year with the 2.8 million, would be definitely sufficient funds to cover going forward with that West Hill roof. Of course, if you look along toward the bottom and see how that progresses, there will be other projects. If they're not reimbursed, for example, that high school tennis court, we'll probably have to reconsider the level of funding or some other source of funding.
If you, bottom, very bottom, maybe you can explain that too. You know, the bottom of each column, how it, 199, and then it goes up to 1.3, then it drops.
Right, that's
Yeah.
rather than, reading them all, but yes, so you can see that is a progressive, so it, obviously 2025, 199, 2026, still in excess of 1.3 million, but as we go into the 26, 27, we have the revisit of the Stevens HVAC, and I don't want to take all your
That's fine.
story away, but I think we've got issues about possible reimbursement on those.
Well, the state typically never funded HVAC projects, but more recently they have, funded them as far as reimbursement purposes go. But supposedly when that money dried up, it would go away. But they've been finding the funding for them, so it's unknown at this point, going out that far, what'll happen.
We were in line for a grant, 2-3 years ago? or something?
Yeah, and we are and we will be getting a grant based on the $700,000 that we anticipate doing this summer. We'll get reimbursed for that.
No, but specifically for the HVAC?
Yes, yeah.
So we're still on, because I know we did that grant and then we didn't accept the grant because we were putting money into it. So is this a different grant or the same grant?
No, this is, basically, the state, when they sent us the award letter initially, it was much higher. So they canceled that and sent us a revised letter.
Okay.
So that is this project that we anticipate doing this summer.
Okay, so the other grant was a matching grant?
It was the same.
Same,
Same.
but just a bigger amount than this?
Yeah, yep.
So is the West Hill roofs, is not starting until 2026?
Right, because it's, we're just getting the design complete now. So if we, depending on, what happens with the budget, if we do get the funding for it, then we'll put it out to bid next year, probably about this time, and do it next summer.
Gotcha.
Because the process that the state requires is town resolutions, and it's a lengthy process.
And we've been doing some patches on the HVAC?
Yes.
And the roof?
Or on the roof?
On the roof.
We repair leaks as needed.
Yep.
But the HVAC is just, we've had to do any improvements to it, or is it just
It's
still
been,
going along?
Just curious. We've been doing different sections as depending on the funds that we are able to receive for it. So we've been doing it in phases.
Okay, do we know how much the final project, we probably don't
We
know.
anticipate, once it starts going out in years, but, we do anticipate the balance after this summer to be 2.2 right now.
Okay. could we get also, we have there the history like 25, can we go back like 2-3 years, just so we have a?
Sure.
I don't need it this minute, but if we can
Yeah.
have it like for Monday's meeting, that would be cool.
Okay. Thanks. And with that being said about the HVAC, I have noted on that state grant funding estimate, those are for the projects, that would be for the roof. And then that's highlighted first installment on the Stevens. At the yellow items, since we're not sure of the funding, I usually can see there's nothing there.
Yeah, because I noticed down
For
here
that-
you said
yeah.
potential zero, so we don't, it's,
If we do get something, it's a bonus.
Conservative,
Yeah.
assuming it's not. If you do, then we'll be obviously in better shape.
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Anything else on there for you guys that you want to?
No, I mean, that's been the major change. We just, after through conversations, it just makes sense to, but again, the board facilities committee hasn't met to make the change, but it makes sense to move that up.
Board of Ed?
Got anything to add, Roger?
No, I think we're good.
Onward to town?
Sure. Those are easy.
We try.
Shows 5-1. First part will be parks and facilities. What we have reserved on parks and facilities, $250,000. And as you look through this, and it's the same format, revenue along the top, the projects listed toward the bottom. And I know, Phil, you just said that we're gonna move that elevator out, which is good. But as you can see, I think the 250,000, although we may not adjust it for this year, but in future years, I think this is a category, if we're going to do a reserve, that we're gonna have to look at raising that, because obviously after the 5 years, we're obviously short about $1 million to take care of some of those projects. Of course, that does include, we've got the running line item of $250,000 for the Elm Ridge pool, which we discussed. And again, that's, if we chose to not fund that for the 25-26 year, if we had the $250,000 looking down, in that list, there's $675,000 of items. And I don't know, Phil, do you want to go on some of your items in more detail?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the fire department. Fire department, well, we discovered this year that the key system is, we can no longer get parts. So that wasn't on the table. What was really on the table was a fob system for all 3 buildings for entry, so they can keep track of the goings in and out. Fobs are, a little easier to use to open building, except for instead of keys. Keys, if there's a turnover of personnel, you have to go chasing the keys. Well, fobs are you just deprogram them. So, but what I did was I combined. This is the first year in I think 3 or 4 years that this was in the CIP. It was once in there, took it out, and I was gonna do them a building at a time, 3 years in a row. But because of the key system situation, that we have to replace it, I figured, well, let's get it all done all at the same time, possibly the same vendor, only because it's easier to chase after the people that we have to give out keys, fobs and such, if we do it all at the same time. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Basically, you need to do that because you need to keep track of who's going in and out because of this valuable
Yes,
equipment and so forth in there. Yeah.
Correct. Right.
So that also includes the ambulance,
Yes, yeah. It includes all of
the whole building.
the whole building, the exterior doors, but the ambulance do have their own system, separate than the key system for their for the other firehouses. But yes, it can include their doors as well. And you want me to touch base on the?
You
okay,
would.
So this is a new item, and it's, has to do with the highway garage. And so there's a history. So during COVID, they had to move their break, lunch, and sleeping quarters from the structure that's within the 1965 building. It has 2 floors, so they had to spread out, right? So they used 3 of the 4 bays, truck bays, for their break, their lunch, and sleeping quarters. Fire marshal went through and saw basically what was happening, and he says, we can't have this no more, it's dangerous. They need, if they're gonna have a dorm type system, which would be the sleeping quarters-ish, they need to have a 2-hour fire rating surrounding them, which they currently don't have. We looked at ways of incorporating those original bays into sleeping quarters, but you know, basically, we've outgrown that complex. So if we take, you know, 3 of the 4 bays for that, then it takes away from housing equipment, you know, during rain, during winter or whatever. During the winter, instead of having them outside plugged in because you have oil heaters within the diesel system, so they could start right away. Well, you can park these in you know, the garage bays. That's what the intent was for these garage bays. So moving to, you know, the present, again, the fire marshal poo-pooed, you know, the use of that, you know, 4-bay for sleeping quarters. The existing that was sleeping quarters, the 2nd floor was, you know, kitchenette, area space for couches and what have you for sleeping. Well, because of the need for square footage, it's 50 square feet per person. Could be up to about 20 people that can use the space, so you're at 1,000 square feet. That lounge area is like under 600 square feet, so you can't fit them. And of course, when the fire marshal was there, we were looking at the different ideas within the shell. What if we, you know, 2-hour rated, you know, the structure? Well, you can, but it's still not gonna be big enough. So he deemed the 2 areas, 1st floor and 2nd floor, as just storage. So now they can't use that. So fire marshal has basically said to Ramona, listen, I'll give you until June 1st, you gotta get that stuff out of there. So after June 1st, they're not gonna have, you know, technically a break place, a lunch place, and of course, sleeping quarters.
And thank God no snow.
What's that?
I said, and thank God no
Yeah.
snow, so.
Well,
we
I
don't
know,
have
it's
to
mild
sleep
winter, but you don't know. You don't
Yeah, last Saturday.
Yeah,
So,
really.
so what Ray asked if I can look into, you know, the possibilities. So we came up with a modular type building, and the reason why is we can spread out the payments for 5 years, so it's leased to own. So it's not a big bill this year. So that was appealing, and so we went with that, and we did engineering study as to where we're going to put it, so we can lease to own, you know, the cost of the modulars, but we'll still have to fund through CIP the construction aspect of it. So the utilities, bathroom, you know, for water, drainage, of course, electricity, has to be, you know, we were looking at ideas of placing it elsewhere, but we can't because it has to be attached to the building, so the generator can also support the new modular.
So these are like trailers?
These are correct.
Kind of like the modulars for the schools, right?
Yes, it's just like what West Hill had for modulars, Stevens. I think Stevens still has two of the older ones, right?
We have
Been there for
we have-
over 30
We have
years.
3 of the originals.
Yeah.
And so what triggers the overnights?
Snow removal,
Significant
because they have to,
snowstorms.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, they're required to give the guys rest time. And rest time is, sleeping for, 3 or 4 hours. I think that's mandated, but I don't have the rules in front of me.
We'll be
Certain number of
looking-
hours on.
What's that?
How often are overnights?
That's what we are
It's
studying right
based-
now. Mayor, we are looking to modify the management of overtime, including the garage. So there are ways that we could cut down on overtime.
Yeah, I think the state
True.
guideline says 16 hours straight, so I guess that would be the part that, from the management point of view, to look and see if what we're doing is really a 16-hour straight snowstorm, or are we, should we be able to handle it differently?
We will be able to handle it differently.
As being diplomatic, was that good?
It will be handled differently.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? How do other towns in Hartford County accommodate their overnight?
Everybody's different. We just had that poll come out through our listserv for our public works group. Everybody's different, some people are, like Phil said, they're sleeping in the garage, which is a no-no. They pull in their car, some guys sleep in their car and leave it running, which you don't wanna do. It depends, it's town to town. New Britain just built the Taj Mahal, they actually have bunks, like with real beds and a separate bunk room that they just did. It's beautiful.
My husband's the head of that department.
Yeah, the mayor said, you're building this for $20 million. You should see this place. I think she told me, like $20-some million, you're building it, and they got it done somehow with whatever.
Is there another facility? Why do they all have to go to one facility?
Yeah, that's.
That's for all the
That's
equipment.
operational.
We're on that
election.
one, Chuck.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, we're on that one, and it's the
That's
fire
kind of the way
department offer.
most of the garages are like that. Everything's there, whether, all your equipment, your repair shop, your fuel depot, everything's together.
Yeah, right now, the other option is to utilize company number 3
Right.
on significant storm events where the guys can't go home.
Yeah.
They can use the firehouse, they have cots, they have a full kitchen, they have showers. We went to Weathersfield to find out how they do things. The director, she sends people home, and she expects them to come back, that's their job, at a certain time to finish up, so it's a different management perspective, so that's what we will be looking at.
I can tell you there were a couple of long snow events this year, on weekends in particular. Like I had a couple, they were like Saturday night to like basically Monday morning. They were in for a full day on Sunday because
It's like a 36-hour stretch.
yeah, there were a couple of those this year. It's not
Common.
common, but I know that the highway crew also has to treat the roads, whereas parks just remove snow. So they usually come in earlier to treat roads. So their events can even be longer than ours, and ours were, fairly significant this year.
Drones, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just throwing a question, is there liabilities involved as far as sending them home?
No.
No.
It's just an inconvenience.
Yeah.
Sometimes, depending where they live.
Right.
Somebody lives in Holland or something, it's in the contracts, you gotta report within 30 minutes or something, but you never know with the highway, so. I can see if I can find, if they ever put in a spreadsheet, that it came out, sometimes they summarize it, a lot of times it's just guys, hey, this is what we do, and they never, put it in any kind of report form.
No, I was just curious, because
Yeah.
it almost seems like if it's not frequent, you can go to one of the hotels, right, and get a cheap rate, and you're right here, you get a good shower, and it's warm, and I'm just throwing that
So
out
there-
there. I don't
yeah,
even know if that's
there's some
even doable.
logistics.
I don't even know if you could actually go to a hotel, right? And then on the clock if you're at a
If
hotel.
they drive themselves.
If they're still here,
They
it's
can,
on the
but-
clock, so we're still paying overtime.
Yeah.
Are there any incidents like, hurricanes or something like that, that they would also.
It's a
Could be.
possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at, what was that, 2011 or
Well, that's what I was,
whatever?
yeah, it wouldn't
You know, we were out of power
necessarily
for
have
like
to be
7
just
days.
winter.
They were here around the clock.
We were all here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
FEMA
the hotel
storm.
idea too, if that's a way to save money in the hotels, you know, or something. I mean, they need a place because, like saying if they live in Tolland or something like that, they're not gonna go home, so
Yeah.
they've gotta go somewhere. And I think they're required to have rest periods and
Yeah.
a certain number of
Yeah,
hours
state
on, a
mandates.
certain number of
There's
hours off.
state mandates
Yeah.
and it's.
Yeah,
it's in the
there's
union
That's their
requirements,
contract
so.
too.
Yeah. And you gotta
Something
feed
to
them,
look
that's in the
into.
contract too.
Planning and zoning will be coming in.
Anything else on
Yeah.
town CIP?
I think, Craig, did you want to just,
Oh, so for the pool infrastructure for the high school, yeah, there's just 2 items on there. There's a replacement for the boiler, which regulates the air temperature in the pool area. We've actually had some issues with that existing boiler. It's gone down twice in the last 6 months, and it took us about 3 months to get one of the parts from Europe. So that's something that's definitely important that needs to get done. And the other is to put in a redundant pump, which if one pump fails, the other one kicks on. It's more efficient. It runs at I think Ron could probably.
Yeah, so it would be a very drive system where right now it's at so many RPMs, it's just pumping water. And off times, it can actually reduce and just, just flow the water at a proper rate just to keep it moving. But during, use time, it would pick up, so there'd be an energy savings there.
Okay.
The redundancy is important because if that pump goes down, it pulls down until the pump can get fixed.
Yeah, so there's a backup built in place.
And actually, the boiler is also gonna have a redundant boiler in it as well, so we don't have that downtime anymore. If, they'll both be sized to handle the load properly, and if one does fail, then you have time to fix it, because the other one's taking care of it.
But I can tell you too, just from the last couple of years, the things we've been able to do, if we can get these 2 things done, that sets us up, we're in good shape. We just did the grout last year. We did the main drain repair last year. It's, it's in a good place, I would say.
And Craig, that's the 225.
Yeah.
Anything
That's
else
it.
on-
Nope.
Any other questions on town? Other?
oh, I still had on town, I'm sorry, we did
Oh,
infrastructure,
sorry.
I forgot.
So-
Steve, we've got the 450.
So ours is, actually, I have like 21 items, but only 3 are on the list.
He
Probably,
likes grants.
I'm guessing 13 of them were grants.
They are.
We have a lot, and as I said, that design for Beach Road, we just heard from somebody at the state the other day, and they're kind of cryptic about it. We're discussing that, whether I can hire a consultant or not. I asked the question 3 different times, and they came back, see your contract, it's not in there. So, we're just gonna bid it, or get ready to bid it. So, community farm, it's $50,000 a year. This year, most of that is going to pay the outstanding bills. We still have retained, we still have testing going on to close out the project. It was a year of testing, so, it's very limited right now. So I guess the idea is 50,000 a year, I don't even know. Once it's up and running, I don't think it's gonna be that much to do it every year. Well, right now, it's the prep of the community gardens. We still need power in there if we wanna, and water and sewer, if we ever wanna open that building up.
We need
So,
bathrooms, we need-
Yeah, so, that could be hopefully a fundraising campaign, volunteers, some in-kind services, that kind of stuff would be great. I'll skip down to Washington Street sidewalks, that's out for bid. So, we're hoping that it comes in at that. Concrete went up $12 a yard over the winter.
Went up $12.
Up $12 a yard, up. So it's a huge increase. So that's why right now we're holding off on the Hayes Road, because if we have to, we'll borrow from there, and then Hayes Road, we'll just have to hopefully shift it out a year. Because we just don't know what it's gonna cost right now. Everything just went, I don't know what happened over the winter, but it went crazy. And I got a letter from Tilcon also saying regarding the tariffs and this and that, they reserve the right to raise whatever, whenever they want, blah, blah, blah. And it's on some letter I got here. So, yeah.
So the community farms, when people start to go out and do the load-ins, will there be porta potties out there for them?
Yes.
There's a porta potty
Yeah.
there right now.
So our issue right now is soil.
Yeah,
So we've been testing soil because we need to amend it.
yeah.
We're not having luck with what we have. So we're waiting for tests to come back, hopefully tomorrow, but I'm guessing it'll be next week before we hear.
Did you want to mention that? You got the $1 million for road
Yeah,
referendum?
so we still have $1 million for road referendum. There's 3 roads we haven't done. June Crystal, and that's about $250,000. I think I came up with, I have the numbers here. And then Hayes Road, which some of it is decent, some of it is not. It's silly to bring in and to get our quantities, because the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. So to do those 3 roads, it's about $425,000 in that area, using the current numbers that I have. So that would leave us, I'm not sure exactly what's there. I think it's a little under $1 million now.
Yeah, I think it's.
So let's just
if
say we
we-
have 550,000 left. We want to do some other processes that, like the micropave we've done has held up pretty well.
Slow down.
And then there's a fog seal.
Slow
We wanna-
He's gonna spend every
Ray,
dollar.
Ray, the faster, the more we can do with it now, the cheaper it is. So, as I said, bituminous concrete's gone up probably almost close to double since we started 10 years ago. Maybe not that much, it's probably around 60, and now it's 96 a ton.
Are there roads that were done early in the funding that could use that micro manage,
Basically, the ones that were micro-paved could use it again. So that would have been, I'm trying to think, like 2014, or one of them was Brook Street, and that's heavy traffic, so we have micro-paved that one since. A couple of the other ones, say, Old Forge, heavy traffic, that could use a micro-pave. There's a thing called fog seal that a lot of towns are doing. Weathersfield just did, I don't know how many miles of road last year. And the best way to explain it, it's like putting on like lotion, hand lotion with suntan, sunscreen, and it keeps you moisturized and preserved.
because I'm hearing Ray that he wants to save money, but
Yeah.
if there's some roads that really, if it's gonna cost us more in the nearer future to not do it, that's, I think would be good to have that.
Well, we only have so much left, so.
Right, I'm just saying about that.
So the fog seal, yeah, and people would probably say, what are you doing? But you usually put it on the better roads to help preserve them. Once they start getting cracked and falling apart, it's too late for that process, even the micropave. Micropave's about, million paving right now is almost $19 a square yard. When we started this, it was like 10 or 12, so it's almost doubled in 10 years. The micropave has pretty much held steady. The first time we did it, it was around $5 a square yard. Now it's about $6.50. And the fog seal's like $1.50 a square yard. So, and that's just, like I said, it's like a moisturizer. So it prevents oxidation, keeps it black.
Preventative, yeah.
4 years. So even if you do it 3 times in 10 years, at say even $2, you're at $6 a yard. You get 10 years out of it. Mill and paves are lasting no more than 15. We have some roads we did, and they're already breaking apart, within 10 years.
So if we hit the roads that are not just so in decent shape before they
Yeah,
start cracking.
so I'm thinking maybe we can use tar for that. Or LoCip.
Well, I was gonna point out, if you look at
Yeah.
kind of this similar
Right.
format as the revenues along
Yep,
the top,
Yeah.
they're almost the reverse picture of what we
Right.
saw on the parks and
So
facilities.
either that or
we had.
LoCip funding, because it's in the
Okay,
CIP,
both.
so we have that 182,000.
Right.
We could do a whole bunch of
You could.
stuff with that.
Right, so
if
if you
we
continued,
want.
yeah, at the
So-
450 and had the LoCip,
Yeah.
which is at 182 now, and the town aid road, although that does often help us with all the salt and bizarre weather
yep, yep.
situations. But we can see that will accumulate, after 5 years, we've got about $6 million. So when we all worry and panic about there's no more referendum, this will get you.
Right, and we
There.
said about $1 million a year.
That's right, so we're
So,
in
and
good
if we
shape.
can get $10 million a year to
Mhm.
do the maintenance, then you're not doing major surgery everywhere.
Right.
Because all the roads have been done in the last 10 years, so hopefully most of them are maintenance. I mean, some of them we did as the micro seal back 10 years ago. So we could do another one on top of it, and it'll hold up great. People say, how come I'm not getting, they always say, why did I get the cheap stuff? But it's working. So,
Any other questions on infrastructure? Questions on any town CIP? Other? Vote on adjournment, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Very good.
How's that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
that's excellent.
Covered a lot.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.